prior to passing away.
Another day in the hospital. Stood up tight, which is pretty cool. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
At first, people didn't believe it. Another hoax, maybe, a cruel prank. But then came the post from WWE's official account. Black background, white font, one line. We are devastated to announce the passing of WWE Hall of Famer, Hulk Hogan, and just like that, the wrestling world stopped. Montages flooded TikTok. Real American blasted from tribute videos. Fans posted memories with shaky hands. Legends from The Rock to Ric Flair shared their grief. But amid the chaos, something strange happened. A final message surfaced. Something Hogan had written and scheduled before he died. It wasn't about championships. It wasn't about the spotlight. It was about what he never said, what he never forgave, and what he wanted the world to know before it was too late. This wasn't just the end of Hulk Hogan's story. It was a reckoning with his past, with his pain, and with us. Before the scandals, before the headlines, before the internet could twist a legend in real time, there was only one name you needed to know: Hulk Hogan. And he wasn't just a wrestler. He was the wrestler, the face of an entire generation, the man who made professional wrestling mainstream. Before him, wrestling lived in smoky venues and cable access time slots. After him, it took over the world. Hulkamania wasn't just a catchphrase. It was a movement, red and yellow, the flex, the ripped shirt, the leg drop, the thunderous roar of the crowd when he pointed a single finger to the sky. He didn't walk into arenas, he marched in like a god, and fans worshipped. His motto? Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, believe in yourself. It sounds simple now, even naive, but in the 80s, it was everything. It gave kids something to believe in. It gave parents a hero they could trust. And it gave wrestling a face, one that would become iconic across the globe. He wasn't just on TV. He was everywhere. Saturday morning cartoons, movie theaters, toy stores. He was Thunderlips in Rocky III. He hosted Saturday Night Live. He had action figures, cereal boxes, even his own hotline. Hogan transcended the ring. He blurred the lines between wrestler, celebrity, and superhero. He became the reason WrestleMania survived. The reason Vince McMahon bet the company and won. He main evented the biggest shows in WWE history. He built the house that every other wrestler now walks through. And now, that house feels a little emptier. Because Hogan didn't just die. He took something with him. For millions. This isn't just a headline, it's personal. It's the quiet grief of remembering a time when life felt simpler. When heroes were easy to spot. When good guys wore mustaches and muscle tees and always fought for what was right. Hulk Hogan was more than a man. He was a symbol of a time when strength and goodness went hand in hand. And when he fell, really fell, it felt like a crack in the childhoods of everyone who ever watched him win. Because this isn't just a story about death. It's about legacy. About what we leave behind when the lights go down and the ring falls silent. And the real question isn't just how Hulk Hogan lived. It's what he left behind in the hearts of those who grew up watching him. To understand that, we have to go back, before the controversies, before the comebacks, to the rise, before the fall. For most of the world, Hulk Hogan was eternal. He was the immortal, the icon, the indestructible force. But behind the mustache, behind the bandana, was a man named Terry Bollea, and he was breaking down. Years of slamming giants, jumping from ropes, and dragging his body through hundreds of matches took a brutal toll. Hogan's back was a battlefield. Over 24 surgeries, spine, knees, hips. By the 2010s, he couldn't feel his legs at times. Every step was pain. Every morning, a struggle. In June of last year, he went in for another procedure, what he called pretty serious. But fans had no idea just how serious. Insiders say he barely made it through the recovery. And yet there was no press release, no camera crews, just Hogan, alone with his thoughts, battling pain the world never saw. And that wasn't the only battle. His personal life had unraveled just as violently. A messy divorce, a sex tape leaked to the media, a lawsuit that ended with a $140 million settlement against Gawker, and a reputation forever fractured. The tapes didn't just hurt his image. They devastated his family. His daughter, Brooke, once the star of Hogan Knows Best, barely spoke to him for stretches of time. His son, Nick, was involved in a car crash that left his friend brain damaged. Hogan stood by him. But the weight of guilt hung over the entire family like a storm cloud that wouldn't move. By 2023, the whispers started. Is Hogan in a coma? Did he lose mobility? Is he dying quietly behind closed doors? The rumors spun so fast, his wife, Sky Daily, had to step in. No, he's not in a coma, she said. He's healing, he's resting, he's doing better than people think. But what people didn't see was that Terry Bollea, the man behind the myth, was tired, not just physically, but emotionally. Tired of being a character, tired of proving he was still strong, tired of fighting battles that never really ended. And yet, in his final years, he found something close to peace. He married Sky in a small private ceremony. He reconnected with Brooke and Nick quietly, humbly. He spent more time in Florida, out of the spotlight. He prayed more, spoke less, and when he did speak, it wasn't about fame. It was about forgiveness, healing, legacy. Because while the world still saw Hulk Hogan, he was finally learning how to be Terry again, a man with regrets, with pain, with lessons, but also with a heart that still believed in second chances. It started quietly. No cameras, no paparazzi, no red carpets, just Hulk Hogan, or rather, Terry Bollea, at home in Clearwater, Florida, in the one place where the legend could finally rest. He hadn't been seen in public for weeks, not since a brief appearance at a local church event in early July. Fans said he looked different, thinner, quieter, almost like a man carrying something invisible on his shoulders. Then came the final 72 hours. And no one knows exactly when it started, only that something began to go wrong. Sources say Hogan woke up feeling strange, chest tightness, dizzy spells. He brushed it off. He always did. He was Hulk Hogan, after all. How many times had he powered through pain? But this wasn't pain. It was heart failure. And it was happening fast, according to reports later shared by close friends. Hogan collapsed sometime that evening. Sky, his wife, found him unresponsive for a few terrifying seconds. Paramedics were called. He was revived, but barely. He never left the house again. Not as the man fans remembered. Not as Hulk Hogan. Just hours before the incident, he posted a video to Instagram. No filters, no flashy production. Just him seated on a porch, sunset behind him. The video is just 19 seconds long, but what he said shook the internet. When the lights go out, will they remember who turned them on? That was it. No hashtags, no follow-up, just a long pause. And then he looked away. Fans flooded the comments. Was it poetry? Was he quoting something? Or was this a goodbye? The video would be replayed millions of times over the next 48 hours, clipped, analyzed, each breath, each blink broken down like a riddle waiting to be solved, because by the time the sun rose again, Hulk Hogan was gone. The official statement from WWE came quickly. Black background, white text, a celebration of a Hall of Famer, a legend, a pioneer. They aired a tribute package on Raw that Monday. Clips from WrestleMania, the slam heard round the world, the leg drop, the poses, the crowd chanting Hogan, Hogan, but something felt missing. Fans noticed what wasn't said, the silence around the struggles, the absence of his pain, his controversies, his humanity. Was WWE protecting the brand or protecting the myth? And then came the leak, a series of text messages allegedly from one of Hogan's longtime friends, a fellow wrestler. They weren't meant to go public, but they did, and they added a layer of heartbreak that tributes couldn't capture. One line stood out. He told me he was scared. Not of dying, he'd made peace with that. He was scared people would remember the wrong version of him. Another text read, he wanted to make things right, but he ran out of time. And suddenly, everything changed. This wasn't just about legacy. It was about regret, about a man who had been worshipped, but died wondering if he'd ever truly been understood. The message on Instagram? No longer cryptic. Now it felt intentional. When the lights go out, will they remember who turned them on? That wasn't just a reflection. It was a plea, a final question from a man who spent decades under the spotlight, only to wonder, at the very end, if anyone ever really saw him. And maybe he did know the end was coming, because in those final weeks, he was saying more with less. He canceled appearances. He stopped promoting projects. He started calling old friends out of the blue. One former WWE colleague said Hogan left a voicemail just days before he passed. No agenda, just a soft voice saying, "Thanks for everything, brother. I hope I didn't let you down." Now fans are left piecing it all together. The signs were there. We just didn't want to see them, because if Hulk Hogan, the strongest man we thought we knew, could be aired, never promoted, but real, raw, unfiltered. The timestamp? February 2024, just 5 months before his death. Hulk Hogan sitting alone in a dimly lit room. No music, no posing, just Terry Bollea, looking straight into the lens. And for the first time, he wasn't playing anyone. He didn't start with a catchphrase, didn't tear a shirt, didn't flex. He just stared at the floor and said, "I used to think Hulkamania would last forever. But somewhere along the way, I lost Terry. I lost me in the crowd." His voice cracked. Not the deep roar fans remembered. Just a tired man, a broken man. He talked about regret, about fame, about trading quiet moments for camera flashes, about missing birthdays, losing friends, chasing validation in every arena except the one that mattered home. Then came the part that silenced even his harshest critics. To Brooke, "I know I let you down. Not just as a dad, but as a human being. You needed a father. I gave you a franchise. I'm sorry." The video wasn't long, just under 10 minutes, but it felt like an entire lifetime finally spoken aloud. No background music, no edits, no PR filter, just the truth. And it hit hard. But WWE said nothing. No tweet, no statement, no mention of the footage, not in interviews, not in tributes, not even in the official WWE Network special aired days later. Instead, the machine kept moving. Hogan, hero, icon, immortal. That was the version they chose to freeze in time, and fans noticed. Reddit threads exploded. YouTubers broke down the video frame by frame. Former wrestlers started sharing their own stories. Some stood by Hogan, others didn't. But the question echoed louder with each day. Was WWE honoring him? Or rewriting him? Because for the first time, the Hulk Hogan the world adored wasn't the one they were showing. The real Hogan, the man who cried, who apologized, who admitted he was lost. That man was being buried again. But this time, by silence. Then, just 48 hours later, a full transcript of Hogan's final written message leaked online. It was meant to be included in his unpublished memoir. It wasn't polished. It wasn't public-facing. But it was devastating. Here it is. "To everyone who ever believed in me, thank you. I'm sorry if the man behind the muscles didn't live up to the myth. I spent my whole life being strong for other people. But I never really learned how to be weak. I wish I had said I'm sorry more. I wish I had spent less time on planes, and more time being a dad. I wish I had learned how to stop being Hulk Hogan when the cameras stopped rolling." If you're reading this, don't wait until the last chapter to find your truth. I hope people remember me, not just for the leg drops or the cheers, but for trying even if it was too late to be real. And if I could say one last thing to the world, it's this. I was never the strongest man alive, but I was the loudest. And sometimes, that was just me trying not to break. With those final words, everything changed. The image, the legacy, the myth, because now we knew. Behind the bandana, behind the roar, there was a man who had finally found his voice. Only after the cheering stopped, the news sent shockwaves that rippled far beyond the wrestling ring. Hulk Hogan was gone, and whether you cheered him, hated him, or had long moved on, you felt it, because part of pop culture itself just vanished. The tributes poured in. Ric Flair, his longtime rival and friend, broke down live on air. "We had our battles, brother, but he changed the game. No one else comes close." John Cena called him the foundation, posting a black and white photo of Hogan with just 2 words underneath: "Thank you." Younger wrestlers, many of whom were born after Hulkamania peaked, shared their gratitude too. "We wouldn't be here without him. He opened the doors we now walk through. The legend who made us believe we could be more than men." But the most heartbreaking moment came from Brooke Hogan. A short, unpolished video. No music. Just her tear-streaked, exhausted, sitting in what looked like her childhood bedroom. "My dad was trying to find us again. He wanted peace. He didn't know how to say it. But he loved us. All the noise, it made him forget. But in the end, he remembered. And that's what I'll hold on to. It was raw, it was real. And it reminded people that behind the icon was a family, one that had fractured, bled, and somehow still loved him anyway. But even as tributes flooded in, so did the controversies. The old wounds reopened. The racism scandal, the sex tape, the Gawker trial, and the questions of privacy vs. responsibility. The think pieces returned. Some labeled him a cautionary tale, others called him a redemption arc gone unfinished. But then something unexpected happened. The narrative began to shift. Fans didn't excuse the past. They didn't erase it, but they contextualized it. They stopped demanding perfection and started recognizing the pain, the complexity, the humanity. Because maybe this is how we grieve now. Not with marble statues and airbrushed history books, but with comment threads, with unfiltered clips, with truth messy, complicated, real. We no longer mourn the myth, we mourn the man. And with Hogan, the man had cracks big enough to see straight through. But through those cracks, people found something unexpected. Reflection. What happens when your image becomes bigger than your identity? When the character you created outlives the body that played him? Who owns your story then? The company? The media? The fans? Or the family trying to preserve what little remains? Hogan's death didn't just leave a silence in the wrestling world. It raised bigger questions about legacy, about what it means to be remembered, not just adored, and whether fame is a spotlight or a cage dot in a world where every moment is archived, every era immortalized. How do we allow legends to die as people, not just as brands? Because in the end, Hulk Hogan wasn't just a face on a t-shirt. He was a father, a husband, a man who made mistakes and tried, however imperfectly, to own them. And maybe that's the legacy that matters most. Not the cheers, not the catchphrases, not even the leg drop, but the attempt, in the final stretch, to turn noise into truth. The screen fades to black. One last time, we see him, the pose, the mustache, the flex, the red and yellow, frozen in time. And then nothing. Silence. A legacy. Dimming to black. But here's the question no one can quite answer. Did Hulk Hogan die that day? Or did Terry Bollea finally get to live? Because for decades, there were two men inside that body. The superhero, immortal, untouchable, larger than life. And the man, broken, human, desperate to be seen without the cape. That final message, the cryptic video, the raw interview, the tearful apologies. They weren't just performance. They weren't branding. They were confessions of regret, of realization, of a man finally facing himself. I thought Hulkamania would last forever, but Terry, I lost him in the crowd. We've heard wrestlers cut promos. We've seen them break character. But this wasn't a work. It was a whisper from behind the mask. So now, we ask ourselves, can redemption come too late? If you spent your whole life performing, does the real you ever get a turn? When fans know every line, every move, every story, do they want the truth? Or just a louder encore? And what about us? Can we separate the performer from the person? Can we love what Hulk Hogan gave us, while still holding space for Terry Bollea with his flaws, his failures, and his fragile humanity? Because here's the truth few dare to admit. Sometimes the characters we create become prisons, and the louder the crowd gets, the harder it is to hear your own voice. In the end, Hogan didn't just leave behind a brand. He left a question for all of us. If the world only ever knew the mask, does the man behind it still matter? Maybe the answer isn't simple. Maybe it's not a headline or a tribute video. Maybe it's found in quiet moments, a daughter forgiving, a fan remembering, a man alone